Understanding what publishers really want isn't as easy as one might think. Many writers believe they have a fantastic story within them, and if you are writing purely for your own pleasure or simply have a need to write down whatever brilliant, informative, exciting story you have, that is great. If you want your writing to sell, however, that is something completely different. Writing for a living requires thought, careful planning, and a thorough understanding of what publishers are looking for. In terms of fiction writing, this is particularly true as competition is fierce and demand changes all the time, and most publishers only pick a select few titles each year. Because of this, it's really important that you do your research and do it before you start if you want to give yourself the best chance of being accepted by a publishing house. First, publishers want to make money. A simple truth that perhaps isn't always truly considered by many writers before they begin. Publishers need to be sure they can sell your work and sell it enough that it makes it financially viable for them. They look for specific factors that are tried and tested. They know their audiences better than anyone. They know what they want, and if your work doesn't match that, it will fall at the first hurdle. Check the length. Something as simple as ensuring you are writing to the right length is so important. If you're hoping to have an article or story featured in a magazine, then do your research to find out what the accepted word count is. Publishers of novels also have strict ideas about length. Most are simply not interested in publishing a work of fiction that is under 60,000 words, and particularly if you're a new writer, they prefer the story to be no more than 120,000 words. Non-fiction books vary greatly in length. However, if your work is less than 35,000 words, this is likely to leave many publishers questioning its worth. Next, research the market. Works of fiction need to have a strong plot, engaging characters, and originality. You may have an excellent story about a boy wizard, but unless you can tell it in a totally unusual way, and even then you may struggle, you are unlikely to be even considered. Try not to fall into the trap of thinking that because a particular book has brought an author fame and fortune, if you write a similar tale, that you will be immediately snapped up. Non-fiction writers must be able to prove that they have a strong knowledge of their subject matter and be able to present that knowledge in a highly interesting and unique way. Next, proofread. All writers, regardless of their subject matter, must take care with how they present their writing. Publishers won't be able to overlook poor sentence construction, misspellings and bad grammar, regardless of how good your work is. Next, don't be a one-trick pony. If you can prove to a publisher that you will be able to write additional stories, novels or non-fiction books, you'll be immediately more appealing to them. Stick to the same genre, build up an audience of loyal fans, make it a no-brainer for a publisher to keep taking on your work. Be cooperative. Everyone likes an easy life, so if you do get accepted for publication, then do everything you can to keep your publisher on side. Help promote your work by marketing it yourself. Always meet deadlines and follow guidelines, and generally be a pleasant and cooperative person to work with. No one said getting published was easy, and the bottom line is that it takes hard work, dedication and a thick skin. However, if you prepare yourself properly and make sure you ask yourself if you are really writing something publishers will want, then you stand the very best chance of success. Sometimes it can be difficult to know whether our stories are any good, and let's face it, the sooner we find out for sure, the better. It can be all too easy to get halfway through writing a story only to realise it just isn't going to work, and there isn't anything much more frustrating to a writer than the discovery their story just can't go anywhere. So, what can you do to decipher whether your story is any good? Try asking yourself the following. Have you sketched out the entire thing? Making sure that your story will work is just good common sense. Whether it's a short story or an entire novel, by sketching out the basic plot, doing chapter outlines, and ensuring that you really do have an entire story there that you can feel confident that will work when you start writing it out. Do your characters excite you? An exciting cast of characters will make or break your story. Make sure you pay attention to every character in your story and that they all have a purpose, are intriguing and make your reader care. Is there a journey? Your story should take the characters and the reader on a journey. It should have ups and downs and highs and lows, and there should be obstacles that your characters need to overcome. Making sure that you have a well thought out journey will mean your story is on the right track. How's the pace? Pay attention to the pacing of your story. You can tell if the pace is good just by reading over it. Are there parts that you skip over or parts that feel tedious and slow? Does too much happen too quickly? Your pace is an essential part of your story, so make sure you get it right. Can you imagine the world you have created? Paying attention to setting and detail is another excellent way to ensure you're writing a good story. You should be able to picture the world you've created vividly. If you can't, it suggests that something important is missing. Are you showing or telling? Yes, it's the age-old advice of show, don't tell. It's important to make sure that you aren't directing your readers too much, or that you are making it impossible for them to immerse themselves in your story, because they can hear your voice telling them what happens all the time. While there are some instances where telling is the most economical and straightforward way to relay information to your reader, if this happens too often, it will be off-putting and could make your story seem bad. By asking yourself these questions, you can decide whether your story is any good and therefore whether it's worth pursuing. Ask yourself these questions before you start, and you'll begin your story confident that it's worth writing in the first place and that you won't be wasting your time. One of the most helpful things you can do as a writer is to identify who your reader is. No matter what you're writing about, figuring out exactly who will want to read your work and what their reaction will be to it is so important, right from when you start to create your work through to pitching and marketing it. To help you create a piece of writing that will appeal to your reader, you need to be able to get inside their head. The more thorough an understanding you have of who they are and what they want, the more easily you will be able to mold and shape your writing so it will appeal to them. Of course, this might be easier said than done. However, by making an effort to get to know your reader and to truly understand them, you'll be able to appeal to them more through your writing, to influence them and to turn them into loyal fans. So, what are the things you can do to try and get inside your reader's head? Let's take a look. First, do your research. Start off by doing some simple research. Think about the genre your writing falls into and the kind of person that might be interested in that type of book. You could even go into bookshops and look at the different people browsing in that section, or join fan clubs and get to know the kind of conversations they might have. Next, get feedback all along the way. Make sure you don't wait until you've already finished your book or piece of writing to get that feedback. Ask your readers questions and get feedback throughout the writing process. This will make it so much easier when you go back and begin to edit and reshape your book. Next, look at what other writers are doing. One of the most helpful things you can do is follow your fellow writers and look at the different techniques they are using to engage readers and pique their interest. Look at successful writers in genres similar to yours. How does your writing compare? What do their book covers look like? What does the blurb on the back say? Check out their social media accounts, their author profiles, their websites. Find all the information you can and see what reoccurring themes are there that you could apply to your writing and marketing plans. Use actual data. There are plenty of programs out there which can give you a real insight into your readers, your potential readers, and their behaviour. Even just looking at your engagement on social media and trying to get a picture of the types of people that are interested in what you are saying can help you to build up a picture of who your ideal reader might be. Create a persona. Once you've gathered together as much information as possible, use this to create an ideal reader persona. Write down as much as you can about them and stick up the details near to where you write. You can then always refer to this and always keep them in mind when you're writing. If you're stuck, then you can use them to help you. Simply ask yourself what your reader would want to happen. And if you know them well enough, you should have your answer. Getting inside your reader's head can make a difference when it comes to the popularity and success of your book. So it's well worth trying to get to know your reader and use this knowledge to help shape your writing. One thing that all writers need is boundless creativity. However, sometimes it can be challenging to get those creative juices flowing. Achieving creative greatness is not something that just happens overnight. It takes time and effort. It takes making mistakes and learning from them. It takes hard work and applying yourself even when you are feeling creatively lacking. So often we assume it's raw talent that makes certain people stand out and achieve more, or even that they just got lucky. However, if you want to feel wholly wonderfully creative, it is actually by putting the time in and dedicating yourself to your art that you are most likely to achieve your goal. So, how can you find ways to be more creative and achieve creative greatness? Here are some useful tips. Our first tip is just begin. Every great writer started out somewhere, and when they did, they probably weren't even that good. You'll never feel effortlessly creative unless you start trying. So even if it feels laborious, painful and slow at first, just keep applying yourself and soon you'll start to see your productivity increase and those ideas and words start to flow. Our next tip, make your creativity your priority. If you want to achieve creative greatness, you have to follow your passion with a desire and hunger like no other. It's all too easy to think of your creative projects as hobbies or add-ons to your day-to-day life. If that's your attitude, you'll never honestly apply yourself and find it hard to improve. Start taking your creativity seriously and make time for being creative a priority in your life. Next, never miss an opportunity to be creative. There are opportunities to be creative at every turn, if you look hard enough for them, that is. Almost everything can be turned into a more exciting, more adventurous, more experimental, more creatively freeing moment if you are ready and willing and going to push to make it so. Don't let creative opportunities pass you by. Stay alert and be prepared to follow wherever the creativity takes you. Know that not everything can work is our next tip. Creativity is about experimentation and failure as much as it is about adventuring and success. You have to take risks and you have to make mistakes. Not every idea you have will be great. Not every project will be well received. Just know that that's okay. And being creative is a learning curve. Learn from your errors and failures and you'll always be improving. Next, get feedback whenever you can. There's plenty to learn from others when it comes to being creative, so learn to solicit advice and feedback and also how to take that advice and feedback on board. You don't have to listen to every piece of advice you get given. You don't have to change your work just because someone doesn't like it. You can be skeptical about other people's advice and opinions and make sure you don't dismiss them or shut them out just because you don't want to hear it either. And next, enjoy the adventure. Creativity is exciting and often hits you unexpectedly, but it's also a measured practice that takes discipline and control. Enjoy all aspects of creativity, the parts where you get to feel free and adventurous as much as those where you need to practice to work or find something challenging. If you can embrace all parts of it, you'll be that much closer to achieving creative greatness. Creativity is such an integral part of any writer's success. Finding ways to be more creatively free, as well as how to tune into your creativity, to hone it and shape it and turn it into something useful for your work, are all critical skills. The more we are able to do so, the better writers we will become. Whatever kind of writing you're working on, one of the most common mistakes is trying too hard and making it overly complicated. This is true whether you're writing a blog or a novel. Many writers can get so caught up in wanting to come across as impressive or intelligent that they forget that some of the most influential writing is not full of ridiculously long and complicated words or overly convoluted sentences. Instead, there's a great beauty to be found in simplicity, and often the most uncomplicated writing has the most significant effect. Writing simply but effectively is an important quality for any writer. Remember, you always have a finite number of words to write with, and therefore should make each and every one of them count. By being too flowery with your language, by being painstakingly detailed with your descriptions, by using language that your readers will struggle to understand, you are isolating them rather than drawing them in. While a reader may be able to forgive this once or twice if your prose is littered with such errors, they will soon lose interest in what you have to say and eventually give up altogether. So, how can you reassess your writing to ensure that you are keeping it simple and therefore delivering the greatest impact? Here are some useful tips. Be factual and direct. In journalistic writing, one of the most common pieces of advice given is to ensure you cover all the facts. You can do so by asking yourself the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. There's no reason why you can't apply this to your fiction writing too. When you're trying to set the scene, establish a new character, or relay to the reader exactly what is happening when using these questions can help you ensure that you have all your bases covered. Build pictures. For your reader to enjoy your writing, they want to be immersed in what they are reading. And to do so, They need to be able to build pictures in their mind's eye. You don't need to over-explain what's going on. Instead, use simple but effective detailing to create images. Do this by appealing to the 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch and taste. Ensure your language is precise and the descriptions you use are sharp and effective without going overboard. Inspire an emotional response. In order for your writing to be effective, you need to create emotion in your reader. Try to picture your ideal reader. What kind of person are they? What do they want or need? What are they afraid of, excited or intrigued by? The better you understand your reader, the easier it will be to direct them to feel a certain way about what you've written. If you can get your readers to invest in your story emotionally, you'll have them hooked. Think about beginnings and endings. While your overall piece should have an enormous impact on your reader, it is also essential to break it down further. Pay attention to how you open and close each chapter, then go deeper and examine how you start and finish each paragraph. Simple, effective writing takes a lot of work, but the more time you spend refining your writing, the better it will be and the greater impression it will have. So just keep practicing. Take your time and use the strategies that we've already mentioned, and you'll soon see what a difference it makes to your writing and how much more powerful and effective it can be. Creating deadlines for yourself is one of the most important and productive things you can do as a writer. Without them, it's all too easy to keep putting your writing tasks on the back burner and never getting anything done. Without deadlines, our goals and aspirations can fade away, and the more we leave our writing tasks for another day, the further away and more unachievable those dreams become. On the other hand, setting writing deadlines that are unrealistic and unachievable can also damage your writing career. If you continuously miss those deadlines, no matter how hard you try, you'll inevitably feel like you're a failure and will undoubtedly begin to beat yourself up about it, which will damage your confidence and potentially slow your writing productivity down even more. So, what can you do to set realistic deadlines that push yourself but not too much? First, do the math. Start from your end goal and work backwards to see if it makes sense. If you want to have written your book by the end of the year, then think about everything you need to do to achieve that. Work out the time you have and figure out whether this is realistic or not. If it isn't, don't feel bad about shifting the goalposts back a little. It's also a good idea to factor in some time for things to go a little off track, but don't give yourself so much time that it's easy to procrastinate and do nothing for months on end. You need to make sure you are challenging yourself too. Next, get into the right frame of mind. When it comes to sitting down to write, you'll know what makes you at your most focused, creative and productive. If you set aside all your writing time for 5 a.m, when you know you hate getting up early, you'll probably quickly find it's pretty tough to live up to your expectations. Make sure that you've set time to write when you know there will be few distractions and you'll feel motivated and excited to do it. And next, understand what you are capable of. Be realistic about what you can expect from yourself. If you aren't, you're just setting yourself up for a fall. You don't have to be the most prolific and dedicated writer in the world. You just need to figure out what works for you. Ask yourself where you want to be, when you want to get there, and what you are truly capable of, and then create your deadlines around that. Next, use a timer. Using a timer can be a really helpful way of making sure you stick to your planned writing sessions. If you say you are going to write for an hour 3 times a week, each time you sit down to set a timer for that amount of time, make sure you don't go over or under your time. Doing more can be damaging, as you then don't have time for other tasks which could leave you feeling stressed out and resenting your writing, which will put you off doing it again. And next, take breaks. Make sure you take regular breaks away from your writing. If you get too immersed in it, you may end up burning yourself out. It's always good to finish a writing session on a high and start each new one feeling refreshed and ready to work. Next, be strict with yourself. Once you've set yourself a goal and a deadline, it's time to stop making excuses. It's all too easy to start negotiating with yourself, but this won't get you anywhere, and you'll end up feeling really guilty and disappointed with yourself. So once a deadline has been set, do everything in your power to stick with it. Reward yourself. Rewarding yourself for achieving your goals within your allotted time frame can be a great incentive. Come up with some small and large rewards to entice you to keep on going. And next, be okay with imperfections. Remember, you aren't going to have a great writing session every time you write, nor are you going to be happy with what you've written all the time. Don't dwell on imperfections, and don't let your own self-doubt or negativity stop you from reaching a deadline. Setting realistic writing deadlines is crucial to keep you motivated, moving forward, and feeling satisfied with your writing. So next time you start a writing project, use these tips to help create your goals and timetable, and you'll give yourself the best chance of staying on track. Good writers have high emotional intelligence. One of the most important things a writer must do is to captivate their readers. To do so, they need to understand what draws people in. Being able to capture and express emotions in their writing is crucial. A reader needs to feel emotionally connected to the characters in a story, so a writer needs to be perceptive about emotions and use their emotional intelligence to create empathetic characters. Lots of discipline. Great writers are extremely disciplined individuals. They have to be. Writing is an art and something which takes time, dedication and practice to get right. No one can make a writer write, so without self-discipline, it's so hard to continue to get things done. A love of words. Writers love language and find words truly fascinating. A good writer is always exploring and testing language and discovering unusual and unique ways to use it in their work, finding ways to improve their vocabulary and to perfectly capture a feeling or an image by using words is a writer's greatest joy. A profound interest in people. Writers don't have to love people, but they need to be interested in them. Great books come alive because of the incredible characters within them. Writers only write astonishing characters by keenly observing people all around them and taking what they see and hear in real life and translating this effectively onto the page. Incredible imaginations. Excellent writing requires a vivid and extraordinary imagination. Writers make up entire people with entire lives living in entirely made-up worlds. While writers use their own experiences, feelings, and what they observe in the world around them in their books, It is their use of imagination that gives their stories life and excitement and makes them truly magical. Bags of creativity. Being creative is part of a writer's life. Being creative is all about seeing the world in a new and interesting way, in problem solving, being innovative, using initiative, using connections, and being imaginative. Excellent observational skills. Writers are like sponges. They keep their eyes and ears open all the time. They watch and absorb everything from the way people interact and talk to how the sky looks just before the sun appears. They observe it all and try to find the words to describe what they have seen. Self-motivation. Writers have the constant challenge of being their own bosses or managing their own time, of having to market themselves and organise themselves, let alone find any time actually to write. Being self-motivated is a huge part of any writer's life, and the more self-motivation a writer has, the better they will be. Do you enjoy writing? Have you ever wanted to make an income as a writer? These days, the opportunities are endless, whether it's self-publishing or doing it the traditional way. However, to be successful, there are some things that you need to know to help you along the way. And that's just what you'll find in this video class, consisting of 8 bite-sized video lessons. Hello, I'm Peter, and welcome along to how to be a successful writer and get published.